What's up, everyone? Welcome to tonight's special episode of The Good Guy Drinks Whiskey. Tonight we have a collaboration with the boys over at SBNation NFL. We've got RJ Ochoa from Blogging the Boys, Rob Stats Guerrera from Niners Nation, and Brandon Lee Gowton from Bleeding Green Nation. Tonight's theme is going to be overrated, underrated, and bold. We're going to drink a whiskey that's overrated, underrated, and bold, and we're going to make some NFL predictions for the upcoming season. Overrated and underrated players, teams, and bold predictions coming up. So with that, let me invite my three guests on. It'll give me just a minute to get each of them invited.
Hey, Tim.
Hey, what's going on, Brandon?
Hey, how's it going? Doing good. Just got here in Cleveland, Ohio.
All right. How was the trip out there?
Not bad. It's only like a just under an hour flight, and picked up the rental car, and now I'm here in a hotel room.
That's awesome. And what's the? I know you were asking for requests about the food scene out in Ohio. What did you have for dinner? Was it something good, something unique?
I only stopped so far at Culver's, which is like I feel like an underrated, slept on Midwestern chain. I didn't have time to like go to a restaurant or anything. Like, I just got to the hotel. It was like bang, grab something, go. So I have some things picked out that I want to get to tomorrow and the day after that.
Yeah, you'll have to update us. We'll keep updated on your Instagram and Twitter to see what you're eating and what Ohio has to offer. RJ, Rob, thank you guys for joining us. How are you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing splendid. Stats' arrival has dampened the evening, to be honest. But other than that, I'm doing great.
Stats, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. Before RJ spoke, I was doing great. Now I feel
Super creative answer, Stats, to basically copy mine. Awesome. Well done.
Now, RJ, you're what, like 30, 31 years old, and you've never had French onion soup and just recently had cheesecake for the first time? What's going on with this?
Yeah, I'm 32 years old, which makes it worse, I guess. But Stats is older, just to be very clear. Yeah, I had never had cheesecake. I think I had decided it was gross, like early into life. And we got one, and I was like, my wife was like, "This is so good," and I was like, I've never tried it. Let me try it. So I really blame everybody I knew up until that moment for not properly educating me.
Yeah, well, your pop culture references are top notch. We just need to get your food history up to par.
That's right.
And Stats, I want to apologize ahead of time. One of the whiskeys I did send you was one that you were not too fond of the first time we did this. So hopefully you get a second chance here to kind of revisit, and maybe you'll like it a little bit better this time around.
the Lagavulin, I remember.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
What are you making a face?
No, sorry, I don't want to interrupt Tim, but we're gonna have to talk about that.
No. Don't worry about it. Brandon, now were you able to taste the three whiskeys ahead of time? You got your notes, everything good to go?
Yeah, I'm all good.
All right, and I know we have a bit of a time constraint tonight, so we're going to jump right into it. Brandon, based on our theme tonight, overrated, underrated, and bold, can you guess which of the three whiskeys I'm saying is overrated?
It's subjective, so there's no real right or wrong answer.
So I have to pull up the notes app in order to get my thing. So there was the
Lagavulin 16.
The other one.
All right, so the three whiskeys for tonight are the Lagavulin 16, the Ledaig 18-year-old, spelled weirdly, so you probably wouldn't know it's pronounced Ledaig, and the Knob Creek Bourbon. So I'm saying one of these are overrated, one's underrated, one's a bold whiskey. Which one would you say is which?
I would say the Knob
Yes.
was the overrated, and to me, I feel like the first one is the underrated.
All right, so you said the Lagavulin was the underrated?
Yes.
All right, so you got those two flipped. So I'm saying the Lagavulin is the overrated whiskey, and not that it's a bad whiskey. I do really enjoy Lagavulin. In fact, some of my favorite expressions come from Lagavulin. But just for I don't have a lot of overrated whiskeys on my shelf, so that was the best I could do because it's a little overpriced. The presentation isn't quite what we're looking for. So with that said, we're going to jump right into the Lagavulin for RJ and Rob. Rob, go into this with an open mind. I know you didn't really like it the first time, but the thing with whiskey is that your palate keeps on evolving and changing, and that's what we're going to go with our first.
You know what, Tim? I just want to say it was very kind of you to send these to us at no cost to us.
Thank you, Tim.
Neither Brandon nor I complained about any of them. So
I didn't complain either.
Well, the important thing about whiskey is that it's all subjective. You know, some you're gonna like, some you're not gonna like. Just being truthful about your experience with them, that's the important thing. So if you're not a peated whiskey fan, then it's not the end of the world. But some people like it, some people don't. And it looks like Brandon, your reception's a little weak, so you do come in and out a little bit, just so you know. So if we don't hear you, apologies ahead of time.
It's a great entry. Great entry. Love it. Again, I'm a fan. I'm a student of the game. I'm not a narcissist like some of us. And so this is just a
You're
great
the most
start.
narcissistic.
I've long said every time we've done this, like I'm immediately transported to College Station, like a December night. It's cold outside. Like it's so cold that you just want to not be cold, but you want to be outside. And you just want the warmth of what like alcohol provides. So it immediately takes me there.
Yeah, so midsummer is probably not the best time to be drinking whiskey, and that's.
I've got the ceiling fan on, so similar sort of effect.
And it's kind of my take on most seasonal foods is that if you're inside and the temperature is basically even, then if you want to eat French onion soup in the middle of the summer, it's not a big idea. It's not a big deal, right?
Especially if it's what that place specializes in. If that's like their thing, you have to get.
Yeah.
Stats doesn't know because he's not part of the mixtape. Just to be, totally fair.
Oh, all right. So the reference.
He does follow me on Twitter though, unless he just tries to ignore my tweets. I did retweet a picture of me, Stats, with French onion soup on Monday night. I'm guessing you didn't see that.
I did not. You know what? I've never had French onion soup either.
What the heck?
Really?
What's going on?
It doesn't look good to me. It looks terrible.
Oh my gosh.
Why do they hide it with the cheese? What's hiding underneath that cheese? No good.
It's a nice piece of bread under the cheese. So any food, any whiskey, what's the worst that can happen is you take a bite, you don't like it. Everything is worth a trying at least once. That's my take on it. So I encourage both RJ and Rob, give French onion soup a shot. It's very nice. It's very nice.
Savory, yeah.
I feel like if it's done well, it's very nice. But a lot of people have French onion soup and not done well, and it's just a sloppy mess.
How would you know if it's done or not done well if you've never had it?
Because you can look at it. The eyes eat first, RJ. The eyes eat first.
That is true.
And we have a comment by Mark saying that French onion soup is the best ever. It's pretty broad, but it's a solid soup. It's not my favorite, but it is a very good soup. But anyways, the reason why Lagavulin is the overrated choice is it's a little pricey for what you're getting. It's approaching $100, and there are better whiskey examples out there that you can get at a better price at a higher ABV. That's just more enjoyable for the whiskey enthusiast. So that's the theme. That's why Lagavulin 16 is the overrated choice for tonight.
Oh, breaks my heart. That's someone who...
not to say it's a bad whiskey, sort of like when you and RJ talk about overrated, underrated players in the NFC East. You're not saying that they're bad or good. It's just that relative to expectations, they're not as good as it perceived. And that rolls right into our first NFL-related question of the night: overrated teams and or players. What are your thoughts on that? I guess we'll start with you, Brandon. Do you have an overrated team and or player that going into the NFL season that we can kind of gauge in a prediction?
So I'm not the biggest Bill Simmons fan, but I know he does a bit or he has a mantra of something is so underrated that it's actually overrated.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like we've gotten to that point with the Detroit Lions because I like the Lions, but I feel like everyone's pick for the most underrated team or who's being slept on, and the Hard Knocks hype is only ramping that up even more. You're seeing Jamal Williams give these emotional speeches. Everyone's in on the Lions. And I hate to say it, and I actually do think the Eagles might lose to them in week 1, but I just think, this is still a team that has Jared Goff as their quarterback, and the roster's better than it was last year. They have Aiden Hutchinson, and I think they had a decent draft, but they're still a decent amount away. So I feel like they're almost they become such darlings that I almost think they're being overrated now. They're not. People talk about them as a playoff team. They're not going to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Who's talking about them as a playoff team?
Well, not a favorite, not a playoff, a frisky playoff team. No, they might make it. They might make it in there. No, they're not.
No.
Yeah.
Hell no.
No, I think that's a great choice. You do hear a lot of hype about the Lions lately. And is there so they're over under their win total, at least according to I think DraftKings, is 6.5 wins. Do you think they're going to have fewer than 6.5 wins this year?
I mean, I can see them at 6. Yeah, I think they're like 6. They're like a 6-7 win team. I don't think they're much more than that.
Yeah. So the over/under's on par with what.
Yeah, exactly.
I think if you're the team, this is often said about the Lions, that people be like, you know what, 9-8 would be a great record for them. If you're the team
Right.
that's being said about, then you're the underrated team that's become overrated because so many people are like establishing that expectation for you.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. How about you, RJ? Do you have any overrated players or teams?
I am not a fan of I love the Los Angeles Chargers, but I am not a fan of the way that people talk about them. People act like this is a team that has accomplished something. What have they done? What have they accomplished as a team? Like
Spoken as a Cowboys fan.
Well, I mean, hey, look, I have a job, Brandon. I've got to pay the bills, put bread on my table. I have an 8-month-old son. He's got to eat. But I mean, the Chargers haven't accomplished anything, and people are like, "Hey, man, watch out, Chiefs! Here they come." The mighty Chargers. I don't even know if the Chargers are the top threat to the Chiefs. Again, we can sit here and throw flowers at Justin Herbert, and as much as I hate the admonishing that happens for him, he's still only one man. He may be the quarterback, but he's still only one player. Today, they kind of got outworked by the Cowboys defense, which brought me no joy whatsoever. So while I would love to say the Chargers, more than anything, I do love to stir the pot, whether that's a pot of French onion soup or anything otherwise. I think the Eagles have become a little bit overrated. I mean, I don't deny that there's truth to the fact that they're going to be good this year, but the expectation has just completely gone out of control. Not by anybody that I work closely with or admire, but there's people talking about how the Eagles could, be a Super Bowl contender, and they could but people act like it's the most inconsequential small flip of a thing. If Jalen Hurts is a franchise quarterback, that's the most unbelievably impossible thing to find. So yeah, if the Eagles win the lottery, they will be millionaires. That's true. But other than that, it's hard for me to come up with something. The Eagles are, I think, football Twitter loves the Eagles, and they love Howie Roseman, and so they're always looking for reasons to kind of confirm their priors there. I'm obviously a little bit jaded towards all of that, but I think objectively, even both you, Tim, and Brandon would agree.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And are you saying the Eagles will have 9 or fewer wins this season?
I mean, I could. No, because I'm not willing to make a prediction about them, but because their unknown quantity is so. I mean, it is. I've called Jalen Hurts a fork in the road. It is a massive fork in the road. So I think if you I think the Cowboys over under is 10.5. That is I really wrestle with that because I could very easily see 11 wins or 9 wins. I can't see just over or just under for the Eagles. I could see 12 wins or 5 wins. I think the variance is that wide.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Brandon, what if Jalen Hurts is terrible? 5 wins would be.
Their schedule is so bad, though. Look at the quarterbacks they play.
Them losing to the Lions. So how are you telling me now that their schedule's
super
but friendly?
Not every bad team. I think that's a unique game. But anyway, I don't need to steal the show here. I think we need to get stats involved.
This is part of the conversation, so you're welcome to enter at any point. Stats, how about you? What's your team or player?
Oh, I'm going to go the player route, and I'm really going to take the term overrated literally, and I'm going to go Tom Brady.
All right.
Steal a term from you. There is big loser energy coming off of Tom Brady. First of all, he doesn't even want to be on the team that he's on. He wants to be on the Dolphins. If he had his way, he'd be a Miami Dolphin right now. He doesn't want to be on the Bucs, and all of a sudden, Mr. All In, right? I have this whole TB12 philosophy, everything, your whole life, your diet, your exercise, it's going to change your whole life. That guy is randomly taking 10 days off from training camp, which he's never done in his entire career. Oh, by the way, just so happens to be the week they play the Miami Dolphins. I'm not in on Brady this year, man. When you see quarterbacks with one foot out the door, it generally doesn't turn out well. Look at Russ last year with the Seahawks, man. I'm sorry. Not saying they're going to be bad, not saying any of that. But I'm saying overrated. Tom Brady is overrated this year. Oh, by the way, the Bucs are missing 3 key pieces on the inside of their offensive line, and no quarterback in the league is more affected by pressure than Tom Brady. That's a bad combination.
All right, that's a great take, and one that I wouldn't have thought of myself, but you laid out some great points there, and you can't really argue with that.
Hear that, RJ? Great points.
RJ, your take was good too. Not that I'm not that I should be the judge of NFL critiques, being an actuary / whiskey enthusiast here, but I 100% agree, and I'm kind of in the boat that Jalen Hurts is not the answer. I don't think he has the throwing talent to make the big difference. So I'm expecting a similar season to what they had last year. Somewhere in the 9 to 10 win range at most. But anyways, I hope I'm wrong. I hope they are 17-0 and win the Super Bowl this year. We'll see. All right, so final takes on the Lagavulin 16. Rob, did you like it better this time, or was it just as bad as you remembered?
Just as bad as it tastes like I'm eating a piece of earth.
Well, that is kind of what a peated whiskey is, and as your palate kind of develops, you do start tasting other notes outside of that earthy smokiness. You can get some fruits and some other sweetnesses, some vanillas and caramels, but it does take some time. It does take practice, but if it's not your whiskey, it is not your whiskey. You may not like the next one because of that, but somebody mentioned that Lagavulin is a great whiskey, and I agree. Some of my favorite whiskeys come from Lagavulin Distillery. Just their 16-year-old expression is like Tom Brady, a little overrated.
Wow. So what I understood, Tim, was that Stats isn't mature enough as a whiskey enthusiast to enjoy Lagavulin. I felt. I know I described earlier like a cold afternoon. The more I let it sit, it felt like I was at a function. I'm mingling. You know what I mean? Like my wife has gone and left me to talk to people I'm not too comfortable with. So I've had to make small talk while putting this down. It's just like that kind of environment. Maybe it's cold outside, but like now I'm indoors and warm once again. But that's the vibe. That's the mood this puts me in.
All right, no, that's a great vibe to have. And I do want to just shout out to Brandon was the only one to make the investment in the Glencairn glass, so well done for you, Brandon. When your internet kicks back in here, he might have just missed his compliment, but he was the one of the three who got the Glencairn glass to enjoy the sipping experience. And maybe, Rob, that would make the difference for you. Maybe you'd be able to enjoy the peated whiskey more. Maybe not, though.
If I have to buy a special glass to make the drink taste better, the problem is not with me; it's with the drink.
Do you have to buy a bed to make your sleep feel better, or do you just sleep anywhere?
Well, that's a good point.
I don't need a glass to drink whiskey. I need a bed.
You don't need a bed to sleep, but you have one, right? I mean, so
I get
that's actually a good way to think of it, because the whiskey, you can drink whiskey without a Glencairn or tulip-shaped glass. It does enhance the whiskey experience. It helps concentrate the aromas, which in turn helps it on the palate and the whole experience. You will taste more, you will smell more. So there is a benefit to drinking out of a Glencairn or a tulip-shaped glass. Obviously not required. Hopefully you enjoy it regardless. All right, so the next theme will be underrated whiskeys, and with this, we're going to have the Ledaig 18-year-old. And it looks like Brandon left the chat because it's froze. I'll try to get him back in here, but we'll just continue until he can join us. So the Ledaig 18 again it's another peated one, Rob. So hopefully you don't hate it outright. This one is finished in sherry casks, so it's going to get some dark fruits, dark chocolates in it. It's a little bit higher of an ABV, so it's a little bit more complex, a little bit bolder, and hopefully it provides a more integrative experience for you.
Would you eat like dark chocolate with this?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can definitely pair whiskey with chocolate, with cheese. It's a good whiskey to pair with that kind of stuff, similar to a wine.
Whoa, this one is an adventure.
It is.
That's a good way to describe it. And the reason why I say it's underrated is most people in the United States don't really know what Ledaig is. You don't even know. Most people don't know how to pronounce it. It's spelled Ledaig, which you think Ledaig, but it's Ledaig. It's a peated whiskey, and it's a wonderful value for what you're getting. 46.3% ABV, so it's a little bit spicier on the palate. It's 18 years old, right around $100, which is a great value for this. So this is I would consider an underrated whiskey. What do you think? Is this better? Worse?
Different? I like it a little better than the Lagavulin. It makes me think of like an old leather, like almost like a smokehouse, like with like old leather chairs. And,
oh yeah. No, that's a good description. You get that
Age, you get that leathery notes, kind of like an old library maybe, and some stewed plums with a little like beef and bacon in it. It's like it's just, for me, this is a really nice whiskey. It has a lot to offer, very dynamic, very diverse. How about you, RJ? What do you think of it?
Yeah, I agree. If I have to put a picture to it, this is to me like when Harry, Ron, and Hermione would leave Hagrid's place. Like, this is what Hagrid would pour for himself. You know what I mean? A long day upkeeping Hogwarts. You know what I'm saying? Like, Fluffy in the background and whatnot. This is the, like, you gotta be kind of tough to have this on a regular basis, is what I'm saying. And so I totally could see, that's the person that I think like stocks up on this. He goes into Hogsmeade, buys a case at a time, and he's good to go.
Oh yeah, no, that's actually a great way to think of it too. I could definitely see sitting in Hogwarts drinking some Lechic 18-year-old. So with that, we've got underrated. What team or player, RJ, would you say is underrated?
Well, I know I've been harsh on Stats tonight, and I've only done it because he completely deserves it. But there's one thing that I have to give Stats a lot of credit on, and it's really just because he has agreed with me. And it's that Kirk Cousins is extremely underrated. But I think he's like, these may be different things. He might be like overhated, which in turn has made him underrated. Like, he's just like, people perpetuate the meme that is Kirk Cousins, his thoughts and inclinations towards vaccination a year ago didn't do him any favors. So when he caught COVID recently, that just kind of recycles all the same jokes and whatnot. He is incredibly talented. He is a top 10 quarterback by, DYAR, by PFF's measurement, but he doesn't get treated that way. He doesn't get any respect, especially from the man who just joined us right now. And so I think that as a whole, you've got a top 10 quarterback, which I think objectively is true. You've got the best wide receiver in the NFL in the Minnesota Vikings. I think if we sat here and ranked all of the wide receiver twos in the NFL, Adam Thielen is like the fifth best at worst. You've got a defense who's on the rise. You've got an offensive-minded coach who believes and doesn't hate Kirk Cousins more than anything. I mean, the Vikings are my pick to win the NFC North. And I think that they are a very, very dark horse team as far as the entire NFL and obviously the NFC as a whole is concerned.
All right, yeah, that's a bold prediction for sure. Somebody made a comment that you can't use the word overrated without mentioning Baker Mayfield. Actually, you know what? Honestly, Baker Mayfield would be my choice as an underrated player. I think he's been trashed over the last year. He played well up into his shoulder injury, at least in a statistical standpoint, and the year before that he played pretty well. So actually, he'd be my choice as kind of an underrated quarterback who won't be at elite by any metrics, but at least middle of the pack. 15, around 15-ish in the NFL. If I had to make a prediction. How about you, Stats? What's your underrated player or team of the year?
RJ is gonna freak out, but I actually think my underrated team is the Baltimore Ravens. Their over/under right now is 9.5, which I think is easy money. First of all, Lamar Jackson historically has won 75% of his games. That's the starting quarterback. So that is 12 or 13 wins, depending on how you want to round it. So there's a lot of room that even if Lamar has a down year, the Ravens can still hit this over. And a lot of people forget, even though they had all those injuries last year, they were still the number 1 seed in the AFC on December 1st. It was only when Lamar himself was out where they really kind of fell off. And look at their schedule. They got the Jets, the Dolphins, the Giants, the Saints, the Panthers, the Jags, the Falcons. That's 7 wins right there. So you're telling me they only have to get 3 more wins the rest of the season to hit the over? They've got some coin flip games, I admit. Patriots facing Belichick, that's tough. The Bengals twice is tough. The Steelers, the Broncos. But again, they only need 3 wins out of those. The last, 10 games? So you tell me they can't go 3-7 in those games? To me, the Ravens seem like easy money.
Yeah. No, that's a good pick. But let me ask you this. If you look at the history of quarterbacks in Super Bowls over the last 20, 25 years, it's almost always a traditional pocket passer who wins the Super Bowl. Very few scrambling quarterbacks like Lamar have ever won Super Bowl. Can he break that trend is he somebody who actually can win a Super Bowl? I mean, from a data standpoint, from an actuary, I would say it's very unlikely just based on historical knowledge.
Do Eagles fans know this, Tim? Just on the subject of Jalen Hurts, I'm just curious.
That's why I don't think that's why I don't think Jalen Hurts is the answer. And I think Lamar Jackson, he's more athletic, but he also has shortcomings in the throwing game, at least from an outsider, like a non-NFL critic.
I think that statistic is a little skewed because Tom Brady has so many damn Super Bowls. But like Russell Wilson, by no means a pocket quarterback. He has a Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes is by no means a pocket quarterback. Super Bowl. John Elway has 2 Super Bowls, not a pocket quarterback.
Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, I think that.
Yeah, but those guys can win from the pocket in a very high level.
I mean, Lamar Jackson has led the league in touchdown passes before in his career. Like, I think we kind of sleep on Lamar as an actual passer just because he runs a lot.
Yeah.
I've never heard this from stats before, but okay.
Yeah.
Obligated to point out that BLG will mention that Lamar's playoff performance does not match his regular season performance. And that is true.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, terrible. It's been terrible. Not just, like, bad or kind of lackluster, like, awful.
You make that like claim all the time. They lost in 2019 to the Titans, and then they lost in 2020 to the Bills, and then they lost last year or they didn't make the playoffs. I mean,
how many of those games were at home and they were favored?
Okay, but still, we're talking about 2 losses ultimately. Like 2 losses, like a little. It's not a molehill, but it's like it's a Charmeleon that you're making into like a big bad Charizard here.
What is the precedent of a player to struggle that early on, that much too early on in their career, then go around and become a great playoff or even like a decent playoff quarterback? There's no precedent. There's no precedent.
Yeah, but there was also no precedent for him becoming the youngest unanimous MVP in NFL history.
It doesn't mean it can't happen.
King stats.
But also that's in the regular season, not a postseason award. But yeah.
Anyway, take the Ravens over 9.5 and thank me later.
All right, I'm going to jot that down. This is part 1 of our whiskey and football chat of overrated, underrated, and bold. So we'll revisit this after the season and see how we did. So Ravens over 9.5. Let's write that down. And I'm just I just did a quick look at pocket versus scramble quarterbacks since the Dilfer Ravens. And 19 out of the 22 last Super Bowl winners were considered pocket quarterbacks, obviously skewed by Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. And then of the losing quarterbacks, 17 of the 22 would be considered pocket passers. So, sample size of 22 years. But and the rushing quarterback like Lamar and Josh Allen are more of a recent trend where the frequency of those types of quarterbacks are more common in the NFL. So maybe these are just old stats that we're looking at and we need to embrace new trends, but we'll see if Lamar Jackson can do it or not. How about you, Brandon? Do you have an underrated player or team for the year?
I mean, RJ kind of made the case for me a little bit as part of this when he picked the Chargers as his most overrated. I think the Raiders are a little bit underrated in that division. Mm-hmm. I think they're forgotten about. I think everyone is focused on, the Chiefs still, obviously, and oh wow, the Broncos got Russell Wilson, and honestly, they're a pretty good contender also for overrated. And the Chargers. I feel like people kind of have slept on what the Raiders have done this offseason. They added Chandler Jones. That's a big deal, I think, for him and Max Crosby. It's a pretty good pass rushing duo.
Yeah.
And then obviously, I think Derek Carr did some good things last year in a way that, like, I used to feel that like Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr belonged in the same box as, like, you don't want your quarterback to be that guy. They're the worst. Yeah. They're not the worst quarterback in the NFL by any means, but they're the worst quarterback to have. Mm-hmm. I think Carr kind of proved me a little bit wrong last year. Like, he was a little bit better than I expected to be. And, I'm not saying the Raiders are going to go all the way to the Super Bowl and win it, but I think they could make some noise in that division. I think people are just assuming they're going to finish last, kind of. So I think they're being underrated.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good choice. And, I think it's often forgotten that the Raiders actually weren't too far off from taking out the Bengals in the playoffs last year. I mean, they were, down to inside the red zone to scoring to either tie it or win it. I forget exactly what the scenario was. But, yeah, that's a good team, and they've only gotten better from last year. I guess a lot will depend on if the new head coach can actually come through and not blow it like he did in Denver. So yeah. So that's the big question mark. Sort of like Jalen Hurts, that's a big question mark. That will it's kind of a wait and see what'll happen with that. My pick for underrated team would be, and I don't know if it necessarily qualifies, but I think the Steelers are a little underrated. They are typically they perform well, at least baseline well. They haven't had, their over under this year is 7 games. They haven't had fewer than that since 2003, I think it was, or 2006. It's been a while since they've 03, and they've only gotten a little bit better from last year. I mean, anybody can be better than Big Ben at quarterback, and their offensive line maybe took a slight improvement with a couple of free agent signings. So, and they've got decent wide receivers in Johnson, is it, and Claypool. So, I think they could definitely exceed that 7-win over under. At least that's what I have up here. Maybe that's changed since this has been updated, but I definitely think they'll have over 7 if I had to pick.
Stats wants to disagree with you so much right now.
Stats, what's your take on the Steelers?
I mean, if they had anybody else at quarterback, I would be right there with you. But the idea that Mitch Trubisky is all of a sudden going to stop being a pumpkin because he had a couple of good preseason games in Buffalo. What are we doing here? I'm sorry.
But a pumpkin is an upgrade from what they had. I mean,
Is that better than Ben Roethlisberger last year?
But that's not the bar. The bar is, are you good? Ben Roethlisberger was putrid.
But the bar is 7.5. To be fair, that's the bar we're talking about. So
yeah, exactly. I'm talking about the over under. If their quarterback is improved, can they exceed that expectation?
I mean, if you told me they had Jimmy Garoppolo, I would be like, yes, right there, because that's exactly the same kind of team Okay, RJ, you don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is better than Mitchell Trubisky?
I think they're the same. I don't think that
in what universe?
I think that Jimmy Garoppolo is like the 38th best quarterback on earth. So I think that Mitch is like 39th. I mean, that's
So you think Jimmy Garoppolo is better, for the record?
That's true. I don't want to close this part of the discussion without saying I would posit, and again, this goes back to BLG's like you're so underrated that you become overrated. There's a lot of hatred for the Cowboys, and I don't believe in them, to be very clear, like to win the Super Bowl, which is kind of your point about the Steelers, Tim. But like in the world of over-unders, and stats mentioned Baltimore's schedule, and this is true for the Eagles as well. They get to play the NFC East. I mean, they swept it last year. Say they win 4 of those games. They get to play the AFC South. Say they win 3 of those games. Right there, you're at 7. They get to play like the Eagles, the Bears, and the Lions. That's 9. They get to play, the Vikings, who some people don't believe in. That would be a 10. They get to play the Titans late in the season. Who knows what that looks like? I mean, that's
best quarterback in the division.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a conflicting year for me because I don't believe at all in the roster. But they have the best quarterback, as BLG mentioned, and he's very good. I mean, and so how much can he carry them? Could he carry them to 10 wins and miss the playoffs, or 11 wins and be a wild card team? It's not impossible. We've seen it done before. I've never seen a team who wants to be the Rex Grossman Bears more than the Cowboys do. They just don't have Rex Grossman. And so, I mean, I think that they are – people have caught up now to where they're like, what is Dallas doing? Their roster, all these questions, blah, blah. So, all the hatred is at an all-time high. So they might have, become underrated in the process of that. It wouldn't be my pick, but I think it's interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, and I mean, you can't really say Dak Prescott is the best quarterback in the NFC East when the Eagles have Reitz and net. So I mean, come on, we have to keep him to in the game here. But no, that makes sense. I do think there's been a lot of hate towards the Cowboys, but I think for good reason too. McCarthy hasn't really proven to be anything substantial. They haven't made much roster improvement
from last year. So
as opposed to everything that Ron Rivera and Nick Sirianni have proven, though, to be fair, right?
Nick Sirianni has a small sample size, so he's still kind of the jury's still out on him. But yeah, Ron Rivera, nobody really takes the Commander seriously.
Well, thank you for agreeing with me on that, Tim, because I know 2 guys who chugged the Kool-Aid 2 years ago. So thank you so much, Tim.
No problem. All right.
We will jump into our third and final whiskey here. This, of course, is the bold whiskey. This is Knob Creek, a bourbon. So why is it bold? Well, because we're bottled at 60% ABV, so it's got a very high strength to it. It's bourbon by nature. It's sweet. It's powerful. It's a bold whiskey. And I always carry a little water vial. This is if you really want to dive into the whiskey nerddom. Grab some water vial and add a little water to your whiskey. That'll help cool it down a little bit, make it a little bit more palatable. So let me know what you guys think of the Knob Creek. And Brandon, what were your thoughts on the Lagavulin and the Ledaig when you tried
them?
The Lagavulin is my favorite, and
Okay.
the things that jump out to me about it, similar to last time, it's just the smokiness.
Yeah.
I wrote down bacon, like because
Yeah.
obviously that's like a component, but even just like there's like a hardiness to it too. There's like I don't know how this can be possible from a whiskey, but like there's like a meat almost like kind of flavor going on there. It reminds me of these chips I used to get called Late July chips, where they had a bacon habanero flavor, and they're actually vegan. And I didn't know that till later. So I think, a lot of kind of bacon flavored things can kind of go wrong and it kind of gets gross, or like that flavor doesn't get always simulated right.
Yeah.
But it reminds me of that. And like somehow that smoke is just like right on and nice. And the other one I thought was like, I wrote down, was kind of like a soulless version to me of the Lagavulin.
Okay.
It didn't have the same like oomph to it. And I don't know if having those back to back kind of like influenced my opinion on it, but I kept having to go to that one. Like Lagavulin, I just had half of the bottle to start because I had, for the full disclosure, like I had these before I went to the flight, so I wasn't trying to like have the full bottle. But I had to keep going back to that second one because I'm like, what am I getting out of this? It wasn't as distinguishable to me.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. I think the Ledaig is a little bit more of a challenging whiskey. It does have some intriguing characteristics, and it doesn't have that one bold flavor profile that really can kind of grab you or not. It's a little bit more nuanced and integrated into the whiskey, so that's probably part of what you're getting. I bet if you had a full bottle of each of those whiskeys, you'll always like the Lagavulin, but I think by the end of them, you'd probably start gravitating towards the Ledaig just because it does offer a little bit more complexity as you drink it and understand it more. And that's common with a lot of whiskeys. I always encourage people to really enjoy most of a bottle of whiskey before you develop your opinion, because it evolves, your palate evolves, and it changes as you drink it down. So that's my that's always my recommendation. So if you ever get a chance to buy a full bottle of these, Rob, I could tell by your face you could taste that spiciness, that strong ABV.
So that hit me definitely more than I thought, and then I put a little water in it, like you said, and it was like awesome. Like that. This is my favorite bar. I don't think it's even close. I really like that. Like I would go buy that at the store right now.
Yeah, no, and Knob Creek, and this is a special warehouse wine and liquor, which I think is actually in Connecticut. I think it's outside of Hartford. Say that again, Rob. Were you talking? Oh, no. I actually think I got this outside of Hartford, Connecticut, and it's affordable. I think it was around $40, $50. It's 11 years old. It's a nice, powerful bourbon. I'm not as big of a bourbon fan as a Scotch fan because I think they're a little bit more one-dimensional, but they're really nice, sweet dessert whiskeys. I usually classify them as, because you get that corn distillate, and it's just a very pleasant whiskey. What about you, RJ?
So I obviously like to let whiskey transport or any alcohol transport my mind. And when I was sort of like digesting the Ledaig, like again, I described like a cold environment. Any of these like generally do that. This burned my eyes at first. So like I was kind of like, whoa, this is a little powerful. So I would describe the Ledaig in hindsight as like as Game of Thrones to the Knob Creek's House of the Dragon. Like there's a few dragons present in the Game of Thrones universe, but they're like dwelling and dominating in this universe here. Again, that's my presumption based on having not seen any episodes. But this is this will wake you up. You know what I mean? This is you know, you need to be ready. You got somewhere to be after this. I mean, just let them know that you had some Knob Creek, because they need to.
I know, and that's why it's in the bold section. And yeah, for me, I get a lot of the nice oakiness to it, some nice cherries, a little bit of vanillas in there. I mean, this is a really nice bourbon. Again, for me, it would probably come in third, but I really like all these whiskeys. And this is a good value and just a good bourbon overall. So I'm glad you're enjoying it. And again, once you do invest in a Glencairn glass, the experience is only going to be enhanced. So with that said, bold predictions on the upcoming season. It can be overrated, underrated. It can be really anything. RJ, do you have any bold predictions coming up? What are your thoughts on the upcoming season?
I already mentioned that I think that the Minnesota Vikings will win the NFC North. That would be considered bold by some, but they haven't been digesting Knob Creek for a few moments, so I'm feeling a little bit more emboldened. I have really taken up the only real estate on the Indianapolis Colts are frauds hill. Nobody else is brave enough, confident enough, might as well just say handsome enough to say that, but I am. And I don't believe in Carson Wentz. I don't believe in Ron Rivera, but I believe so little and so meekly in the Indianapolis Colts that I will say right now that the Carson Wentz-led Commanders finished with more wins than the Indianapolis Colts in 2022. And even if Carson starts 10 games, 9 games, whatever, the teams that Carson Wentz plays for, the Commanders of them, obviously. So if they have some games that Taylor Heineke starts or whatever the case would be, those are I'm exempt from those. I'm not counting them, even if they're wins. Carson Wentz will author more wins than anybody on the Indianapolis Colts this season.
That is certainly a bold prediction, and you have a Friends shirt on, which I love. My wife is actually downstairs watching Friends this second, so I support that. That is definitely a bold prediction. I would not be on that mountain with you. I would 100% say the Colts would win more games than. I would need a few glasses before I kind of get on the car. As an Eagles fan, and Brandon can relate, you just have no faith in Carson Wentz. I was out on Carson Wentz in 2018 before anybody else was. I knew through his first 4 or 5 games after he came back from his knee injury that no, he's not the guy. He's not the guy. So I have zero faith in him making any kind of headway in that regard. But this is why we're in the bold section. If I had to pick my bold prediction of the year, I think both Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are fairly overrated. Josh Allen, he had his ridiculous playoff games last year. The 2 games were lights out great, but I think too many people are taking that 2-game sample size and extrapolating it out like that's going to be the norm, whereas he really regressed in the regular season, if you compare stats at least. He was kind of in between 2020 and 2021 when it came to his stats, and I think that's probably more his standard. So my guess is Josh Allen, he won't be as great as people think. Lamar Jackson, I think he might even be out of the top 10 in QBR and QB rating. I don't think he's as good, and I think the Ravens are playing that right. I wouldn't extend him because I don't know if they're ever going to win a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson. That's just an ignorant football fan's perspective, but those are my bold predictions. Stats, how about you? What are your bold predictions?
Well, I know this is going to make RJ and BLG laugh, but allow me to just
this isn't even creative. I don't have a problem with but be creative at least. Put some thought into it. Stats. I think Trey Lance is so good, and the Niners.
I do like that hat.
My favorite team. Wow.
Thank you, BLG.
It's a good hat.
So I'm going to say that Trey Lance is a dark horse MVP candidate. Mm-hmm. Good bet for your money. He's plus 4,000 right now on DraftKings. He is absolutely surrounded by everything you would want a potential MVP candidate to be surrounded by. He's got great weapons in Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and Brandon Ayuk. He has an elite offensive play caller in Kyle Shanahan. He has a defense that at worst is going to be top 5 this year in the league. Everything is working for Trey Lance. And oh, by the way, they're playing a 3rd place schedule this year as well. The eyes of the NFL world are going to be focused on him. Matthew Stafford's got elbow problems. If the Niners win the NFC West, Trey Lance is going to be the MVP of the year. It is.
Tim, we are sorry. On
easy money. You should absolutely do it. And we've seen second-year quarterbacks win MVP. Patrick Mahomes did it. Lamar Jackson did it. It's not crazy.
Wentz could have.
Any stretch. And Wentz was going to do it until he got hurt.
Yeah. But the difference between Trey Lance and those other guys is that Trey Lance is coming into the season with less experience, just in aggregate from college to professionals, than those guys. And I was listening to Peter King's podcast earlier today, and they had a Lance segment, and his advice was just be patient with him. I think he's setting up the expectation that Trey Lance may not be great when he first starts, but just be patient and things will start to click. So, it's a bold prediction, so that's why we're in this section. But we'll see. We'll see how that plays out.
To add to your point, Tim, I know Wentz didn't win MVP, but Carson Wentz, the 2016 Eagles were not an amazing team. The 2017 Chiefs were all right, the ones Patrick Mahomes inherited, and the 2018 Ravens were all right. All 3 of those quarterbacks inherited so-so situation. I think this is why it's a bad bet on Stats' mind. The Niners
from the narrative
title game last year. If they don't reach that point, it's so difficult to crown him as MVP because
It's
they,
a
as a
regular
team,
season
underachieved.
award. It doesn't matter.
Okay,
if
you're
they
right,
reach the
Stats. There's
NFC
no
Championship game.
postseason involvement whatsoever on behalf of the voters. Totally.
I mean, that's your ball. That's ridiculous, man. Come on, be better, RJ.
No, that would make for an intriguing year, and it's always good to have elite quarterback. So hopefully Trey Lance can make that jump and make the NFL a little bit more exciting this year. How about you, Brandon? What's your bold prediction for the year?
So you hear about teams going from worst to first. I bet people love to talk about that in the NFL.
Yep.
Well, why not the team that's been the worst in the NFL over the past 2 years in terms of having the number 1 overall pick 2 years in a row?
Mm-hmm.
Jags are going to win the AFC South, baby. Why not?
Whoa.
And RJ, you're talking about the Colts over here being frauds, so you don't believe in them. The Titans got worse. Who can argue that the Titans got better? Like, no, they didn't. They lost A.J. Brown, who's a big freaking deal, and who very much did not want to lose. I mean, sure, they draft Treylon Burks, but like, who's running with like the second and third teams or whatever and playing late into the preseason? Like, even if he's good as a rookie, he's not A.J. Brown. And so they downgraded there. Derrick Henry, it's another year. Derrick Henry's a freak. I'm not trying to take anything away from the greatness of that player, but eventually a running back who carries as much of the workload as he does and is coming off injury, might not get that same kind of performance, at least to the point where like he could still be good, but not enough to like carry the team like he's had to. And the Texans, I mean, do I really need to explain why they might not have the best outlook? So why not the Jags? Why not a Super Bowl winning head coach in Doug Peterson, who is just a massive upgrade by default on Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence? Speaking of second-year quarterbacks, why can't he make a jump? I don't love the Jags offseason in terms of like some of the long-term contracts they handed out and how those might age, but in the short term, I think they're better. They added more talent to their team. I think they're going to be better. And with that division kind of being up for grabs, I'm going to say they win it.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think they're one of the toughest teams to kind of figure out in the offseason just because they have had so many moving parts and there's so much reason for upgrades from last year. But I think we can use the Brooks as evidence that the Eagles did not lose that trade because clearly he's underperformed.
I hope you're listening, Stats, because you're the one who made the case that was the truth. I would just want to offer him. I disagreed with Stats' bold prediction, but at least it generated some disagreement here. The reason I think Brandon sucks is like that is super possible. Like that is super obvious. Like the AFC South is really poor, is really bad. It makes complete and total sense. I don't think that's bold. You asked for bold.
I think it's bold to say the
that's live up to
team.
the Knob Creek status, honestly.
That's pretty bold.
What's their over/under? What's their over/under this year for the Jaguars? It's
let's take a peek.
It's probably like what, 6.5 at most.
6.5, exactly.
I mean, that's not like obvious.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they definitely can exceed.
RJ, if it's so obvious, place like $1,000 bet on the over right now for the Jags.
I will. Give me $800 and I'll do it. At Stats, you chip in 100. So I mean, I'm in for that.
Well, I'm not playing. All my money's already on Trey Lance. I don't have any left.
That's true.
I would actually say I think it's more likely that Trevor Lawrence wins MVP than Trey Lance.
I have a bet down on Trey
I
Lance
agree.
already. I did it in February.
But that's also not even super bold from a standpoint of like, okay, yes, one of the most accomplished college quarterbacks versus a guy who.
I don't think it's bold. I'm just noting how dumb Stats' prediction was. Like that's
okay, fair.
That's fine. We'll see what happens. We'll see.
All right, no, that's great, and I thought those bold prediction section was great. All right, I know some of you guys have obligations to do, so I'm going to get you out of here on one final prediction, one quantifiable prediction. And I don't know, did you guys want to do part 2 after the regular season or after the season's over? When do you think your schedules are going to permit?
I would say probably after the entire season's over.
Yeah.
Sure. Right.
Yeah.
After the entire season, so we're going to go out with the final prediction. Who's in the Super Bowl and who wins it? RJ, who are you going with?
I've been in on the Ravens before anybody else, especially these two jokers. But I mean, I don't have any actual money, but I've got a lot of stock in the Buffalo Bills. So I might as well manifest this. I'll go Bills. Vikings. Bills win it.
Bills Vikings. Wow. And who wins it?
Bills. I'll take the Bills all the way.
Vikings.
I mean, look, I'm lining things up. And again, like, I'm sorry for liking other NFL things and not just focusing on my team and Trey Lance and his second pick. So.
Yeah, that's definitely a bold prediction that the Vikings pick. But yeah, all right, we'll see what happens at the end of the season. How about you, Rob? What's your two teams?
I legitimately have not thought about like my Super Bowl prediction until you just asked that question. Man,
I feel like the NFC is tough to pick.
NFC is tough.
Yeah, like that's why you could see the Vikings. Like they have enough to like get hot and like have a Justin Jefferson like freak God mode game. You know what I mean? Like it's possible. I mean, like who do you have to slay in the NFC? The Packers and Bucks, like that's it. I mean, and you probably only have to play one of them. I mean, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
I don't know, man.
Brandon, do you want to go while Stats thinks about it for a minute?
Stats only have one team to be fair because we know his NFC pick, but Brandon, you're up first.
I'm gonna go Battle of LA, baby. It's the Rams back, but they're getting beat by Justin Herbert's Los Angeles Chargers.
All right.
The NFL would hate that happening the year after it was at SoFi, by the way. Like they would.
Yeah.
I'll go with the Ravens in the AFC, and I'll go with.
Put your money where your mouth is. Take the 49ers.
Yeah, and it would be the 10-year reunion of the Super Bowl between those teams. That who won that?
I'll go Ravens Niners. There you go.
Who won that last one?
Man, I'll take the Niners.
Right, the Niners are winning. So yeah, the all choices aren't ones I would pick. As somebody who just looks at history, I'm going with the Bucks. Even though Stats is down on Tom Brady,
Who did you say?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going with the Bucks from the NFC. I know you're down on Tom Brady, but anytime he's been faced with controversy in the past, he's dominated. So, tell him that he's fiddling with the Dolphins and whatnot. He's probably going to be the MVP and win the Super Bowl. And then the AFC, for me, that's a little bit trickier because I don't really believe in Josh Allen, despite the hype. I know he's an athletic marvel, but I don't know. So I'm just going to be predictable. I'm going to go with the Bucks and Chiefs, and we're, it's been too long since Brady's last Super Bowl ring, so he gets number 8. He gets number 8 this year. So that's my
pick right there.
Nice.
Yes.
Anyways, any final thoughts on the whiskey tonight? Any final football thoughts for any of you guys?
Knob Creek for the win.
All right. It's a great whiskey. It's the first time it's been a few months since I've had this Knob Creek. I'm glad I picked it for tonight because it's really been a delicious whiskey. RJ, any final comments from you?
I'm going to try one of these. I said it last time, but I'm actually going to try them with an ice cream. That's all I kept thinking. Like I want to let one like kind of blend and soften and see how that goes. That's my final whiskey thought. My final NFL thought is I haven't thought too much about fantasy football yet. I'm excited that time of year is like here. I'm excited to kind of throw myself into it. I'm reigning champion of my league of record. I'm the only 3-time champion.
No one cares, RJ.
My final thought is my final thought, not your Stats. You already gave yours, and it was dumb.
Well done. Congratulations on your fantasy dominance. I'm in not a fantasy league, but a pro pick'em league in my family, and I've won the last 2 years, so I can appreciate the dominance there. Brandon, any final thoughts on the whiskey or NFL for you?
Just want to thank you, Tim, again for putting this together and making it all happen in terms of sending us the whiskey and everything, and then hosting us here and getting us all on the same page and working with our schedules. So big credit to you for making it happen.
No problem at all. You don't lose those other 3 samples that I sent you because obviously we'll need them for part 2 at the end of the season, so keep them somewhere safe. Stats and RJ, hopefully by the end of the season you will have a Glencairn glass and your whole world will be blown by how much better the whiskey is. No, Stats is already ruling that out.
It's a principle thing with me. I can't do it.
What I told you last time, Tim, is I want the whiskey influencer logo.
I know.
That's what so I specifically want that one. Like I'm not going to go down this path unless I'm doing it the right way.
All right.
Eventually, I'm going to make those. So those are TBD at the moment, but I will send both you and Stats. Despite your stubbornness, you're going to get one eventually, so you'll be able to drink out of that. Again, thank you guys for taking the time tonight to join me. This was a lot of fun talking NFL, drinking whiskey with you guys, and I look forward to our postseason discussion and see how all these bold predictions came out.
Thanks, Tim.
All right. Have a good night,
See you guys.